Mr. Speaker, the climate crisis is upon us, and we've had plenty of warnings in New Brunswick, beginning with the great deluge in December of 2010, which flooded much of southern New Brunswick. St. Stephen, 166 millimetres of rain, 245 millimetres of rain in Gagetown. In 2017, we had the devastating ice storm on the Acadian Peninsula. In 2018, there was a massive flooding of thousands of properties in the St. John River Basin. We've all witnessed now the trifecta of climate calamities in British Columbia this year. But climate action, Mr. Speaker, is so low on the list of the Premier's priorities that you would be hard-pressed to find a New Brunswicker who can even name the minister responsible for climate change. Why is the Premier ignoring the clear and present danger posed to New Brunswickers by an unstable climate?
The Minister of Environment and Climate Change in the Gallery.
Can you imagine for just a minute that the leader does not understand what's going on in this province? For a minute. This department, this government's on top of things like never before. We're going to see a flood mapping update in the next few days, which goes back to the prehistoric days of flooding you mentioned. I drove up to the flooding from St. John to Hampton area yesterday and then again today. Things are being looked into. There's $36 million with the climate change money to adapt to look at the concerns that are needed. Studies on the go. We have the erosion of the coastline. We have the the river system and brooks and streams, and there's more money going into it. I spoke last Friday to the new minister, Stephen Guilbeault. We're on the same page. We talked about erosion, we talked about flooding, and we talked about working together for all provinces in Canada. Thank you.
Remember, preferred consult from Leader of the Party.
Well, Mr. Speaker, lots more studies, that's the problem, and no action. We have 5,500 kilometres of coastline, Mr. Speaker, in this province, and that includes 6 island communities. With a coastline like that and a rising sea level and damaging storm surges, you would think the government would be regulating development and hardening infrastructure in the coastal zone. It was 20 years ago that the Department of Environment released its Coastal Areas Protection Policy. 20 years ago. But no legislation has ever been tabled in this House to implement it. Just more studies. So unsustainable development continues, such as the proposal for a 5-story apartment building with, get this, underground parking within 30 metres of the shoreline of Shediac Bay. Will the Minister of Climate Change introduce legislation to protect our coastal zone and those who live there?
The Minister of Environment and Climate Change in the gallery.
Mr. Speaker, coastlines and the safety of everybody is of the utmost importance. Regarding the Cap-de-May apartment complex, there is nothing in the works right now that's being identified. They had their meetings with the proponent, with the community to look at what you're talking about. I know the area very well. We lived there for a few years ourselves. It's very real, it's very concerning. Back in 2010, the flooding that happened down that way, it needs to be done right. So with the flood mapping coming out, whether it's coastline or inland, will help plan ahead for mitigation or adaptation. So if you're going to purchase land or sell land, you want to make sure it's right, safe, and the right thing to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.